Okay, so we're live, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you for tuning in, anyone who's watching this. And I'm so pleased to be here with Dr. Urmila Patil, who is a lovely friend and colleague who we've worked together now for years through Loyola Marymount University. And I lead a program called Yoga and the Healing Sciences. And she has come in and graced us with her knowledge often every year, actually, for quite a while, on topics of Sanskrit and sacred sound. And Urmila, I'm just so happy that you're joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terra. It's always a pleasure for me to appear in your program. It's my favorite part of teaching, believe me. I'm always exposed to such interesting group of students, and you have been very welcoming, and I feel very safe and welcome when I'm teaching for you.
Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to give a little background, your background too, because you have taught extensively in the school system, American universities, Penn, UCLA, UC Irvine, Loyola Marymount. You have an MA in Sanskrit from India, yeah? And you earned your doctorate. Okay, from India directly. And then you earned your doctorate from the University of Texas at Austin. And yes, you've taught Sanskrit and classical yoga texts in the yoga studies programs. And I also want to just add that you are first generation Indian immigrant. So the topic we're going to talk about is probably really dear to you, around how we honor these yoga traditions in the West as they're evolving, giving light to where they come from, honoring people and places that they come from, and also supporting the evolution in some conscious ways. Yeah, because it's good. Things are always evolving. It's going to happen. Yes.
Absolutely, Terra. And I'm so glad we are having this conversation. Because I think people need to talk more and more about this topic, because sometimes, people tend to treat yoga as this kind of set relic, but it's constantly evolving and it's only going to grow and go to many places. So I'm really glad we are having this conversation.
Well, with that in mind too, the topic of social justice has come up so much, and it needs to. And I know that we've talked about a little bit privately about our perspectives around this issue when it comes to yoga, cultural appropriation and social justice. And I'm just curious if we could get into some dialogue about that from your perspective, where you come from as a teacher. That would be so nice.
Absolutely. I think first I'd like to talk a little bit about cultural appropriation, because that's kind of like the elephant in the room that we need to address. And a lot of the times people get a little uncomfortable about it. They either get very aggressive or get very defensive. And I think there is real space for cultivating a meaningful and friendly dialogue on this topic without anyone feeling threatened or attacked. So what is cultural appropriation basically? Cultural appropriation is when a dominant culture takes certain elements, certain practices or products or ideas from a culture and uses it in a decontextualized manner, right? And many a times cultural appropriation involves the silencing of the people, or basically not involving the communities that have been part of that culture as they go about using that product or idea in various contexts, right? Now, when it comes to yoga, right, the picture is more complex, because as I understand, yoga today is a product of many forces, both Indian and Western. And today it's a trans-global phenomenon where people from multiple backgrounds and ethnicities are joining the force of yoga. There are many voices. So I understand that yoga has this wonderful career which kind of draws upon so many directions. I know so many Western scholars and practitioners who have brought wonderful insights to the practice of yoga. But I feel that sometimes the Indian side of the story in all this gets a bit of a backseat, right? So, and that would mean something like, people not knowing that yoga originated in India. That would mean that people are sometimes not even aware that yoga was originally an Indian practice. They may not know about the multiple contexts in which yoga operated in the pre-modern period, the different meanings of the word yoga, that's one form of, quote unquote, the cultural appropriation of yoga. Sometimes, people get very uncomfortable with the use of Sanskrit terms, right? I mean, they don't want to use the Sanskrit words or the Sanskrit yoga terms, and they get very uncomfortable about it. So there are these different ways in which yoga has been getting kind of disconnected from its culture. There are also times when people exoticize things. For example, I see images of gods and goddesses, Indian gods and goddesses, in yoga studios, and they are just kind of looked upon sometimes as sacred objects, yes, but also as these, cool beings, or rather energy beings who bestow us with good energy. But the larger cultural context, the mythology, the deeper spiritual significance of these deities is many a times lost on the audiences, right? And you see in the wider commercialized world of yoga, you see Sanskrit mantras printed on shirts and flip-flops sometimes. And that can, sometimes it, hurts my sensibilities as an Indian, because these are sacred words, these are sacred chants, and these are sacred images that are not to be treated casually. But that happens, and all of this comes from a place of ignorance, right? I mean, sometimes I feel that we operate in a world where ignorance is kind of a privilege, where you don't have to know about the history of yoga, you don't have to know about the roots, you don't have to know about the Sanskrit terms, and yet you can be a perfectly acceptable yoga teacher in the West today, right? So there are all these kind of elements that make up cultural appropriation. And Tara, to be very honest with you, I feel like the term cultural appropriation doesn't always do justice to what's going on here. I think there's a deeper ignorance about the history of colonialism, and colonialism is basically, it's a fact that the British and other Western imperial powers dominated India politically and culturally for close to 150 years. And during that regime, a lot of India's material wealth was used to support the industrial growth in Britain. A lot of its cultural practices and ideas were first ridiculed and then made fun of, and twisted, misrepresented. Many a times, Indians did not have the say in what the British were discussing about Indians, right? So you see this kind of complete domination of the culture and the country and its material resources. And I feel that many of these tendencies have oozed into contemporary yoga practice. And it's something that we need to address. Like, I recently learned that a school in Alabama, it banned the use of Sanskrit words in its teaching of yoga. It has allowed the teaching of yoga to its students, but it doesn't want to be using any Sanskrit words. Or sometimes when I hear of, a South Asian teacher being exoticized in a yoga studio, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable, because yoga is an inclusive space, right? Yoga means connection, and nobody should feel left out. So I feel that there's a lot we can do to address this phenomenon we call cultural appropriation. But to be very honest, Terra, I've also seen that many students in the West have studied and worked very hard to understand the practice of yoga. They have studied the roots of yoga, the history of yoga. They have been, working hard at their Sanskrit and the yoga texts. So I'm very proud of them, and I feel like there's a real direction for growth. Of course, this can be multiplied in different contexts, because out of the 20 million Americans that practice yoga, there's only a handful who probably indulge in this kind of deep dialogue. But I think that there's scope to kind of take this forward and make yoga a more inclusive space. Yeah.
The what you brought up made me think of how one of the people that have been called the the grandfather of yoga to the West is Krishnamacharya, because of all the teachers that came through him and then influenced the West. And it's been clarified to me many times from people that studied with him directly that it was taught more as a philosophy and not a religion. Yeah. And yet this is an important distinction to make. I think part of why the Sanskrit gets separated even from the asanas or other practices is there's this idea that Sanskrit's even associated with religion sometimes, and as opposed to understanding the larger context of where these things come from. And anything you can say about Sanskrit would be really useful, because I think a lot of people don't understand where does Sanskrit come from? Where does that fall in relationship to the religions or how it's been used with yoga?
Absolutely. Terra, I think you brought up a terrific point. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think this distinction between philosophy and religion, it's very important. And I see that there's a lot of anxiety here about the category of religion, right? It doesn't have to be, because, I look at religion as a cultural product. So, religion is part of this broader repertoire of cultural ideas and practices that exist in any societies. And it's not about practicing a particular religion. When you practice yoga, it doesn't mean that you are becoming a member of a particular religion, right? It's important to make that distinction. But there's a range of practices that come under the category of religion as it is practiced in India. So that involves spirituality, that would involve cultural practices like arts, and chanting. It would also mean community service. That's also part of what comes under this umbrella of religion. So I think there's no need to be anxious about religion, really, because it's really a cultural product. And Sanskrit plays a big part in yoga. I mean, it's the foundational language of yoga. At least, today we know of texts like Patanjali Yoga Shastra or Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita that have come to be identified as key texts in the tradition of yoga, and they are all written in Sanskrit. Sanskrit has this amazing storehouse of ideas, Terra, that there's just you can take one idea and you can just build this whole range of practices around it. I think it offers a real scope for innovation, creativity, and critical thought, which is why I was drawn to Sanskrit in the first place. But even at the more popular level, I think, when we use asana names, there's beautiful mythological story behind most asana names. And knowing that mythological story just kind of adds to our understanding of what that asana means. And it only enriches our practice, So it's not like Sanskrit is just the language of yoga. I think it's part of what I call as yoga consciousness, which allows you to develop a deeper understanding of your yoga practice. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's the chanting, with the beautiful vibrations. And it's something that everybody can feel for themselves, It's not something that I can just write a formula for. When you chant, the effects are for everybody to see. So there are various ways in which Sanskrit does and can play a very important role in contemporary yoga practice. And I'm very excited about it. It's kind of my calling. It's my passion.
Well, and when you mentioned the importance of continuing to share Sanskrit and having that be an essential piece of how we share yoga and explore yoga, what are some ways that you recommend that we keep honoring the traditions and the intentions of the early phases of what we know of as early aspects of yoga, and yet also as it's evolving, how can we carry it forward with respect? What are some ways we can do that?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, Terra. And it may sound cliche, but I really do believe in the power of education. Mm-hmm. And education happens at various levels. One level is just acquainting yourself with the history of yoga by reading up, right? And there's some wonderful books out there that present a very balanced view of the roots of yoga, the history of yoga. I would recommend starting from there. And then maybe.
Can you recommend even one book that you think would be a good
start? I really like James Mallinson's Roots of Yoga. I think it's a fantastic book, and it's a great place to start. Knowing the history of yoga, knowing the history of colonialism too, right? And knowing the structures of power, which is very important in this society. I mean, looking at what has been happening in America in the last few years, I think social justice is a collective responsibility, and we cannot escape from it. There is no way we can just, stay hidden in our little view, little world, and just, practice our own fitness or practice our own yoga while neglecting the larger social issues that are out there. So, educating oneself on the structures of power, educating oneself on one's own privilege, that's a huge part of kind of developing this yoga consciousness. And knowing where a particular tradition comes from, right? I mean, understanding where it is rooted, what is the larger context. I can give you an example if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, please do.
I mean, in pre-modern yoga, right? Yoga was a part of ascetic traditions, right? Where ascetics from diverse backgrounds, they kind of let go of their material wealth, and they led a very frugal and what should I say, a kind of a stripped down lifestyle, right? Stayed away from all the materialism, studied under a guru, studied in an ashram, and just kind of set on they kind of embarked on a quest to realize truth and realize what lies at the core of their identity. But today we are not ascetics, right? We love the food we eat. We love the cars we drive. We are part of this consumer society, which is okay, which has its own benefits. But maybe we can ask ourselves some questions like, am I doing too much? Am I indulging too much? Am I practicing in moderation? Am I eating in moderation? These are some of the questions that lie at the core of asceticism, right? So although we may not be ascetics as such, but we can incorporate some of those questions into our daily lives. We can ask about if we are being respectful towards the communities. Are we being Are we being respectful towards the marginalized communities? Are we being socially engaged with them? This is all part of what is known as engaged asceticism, which we all need, And when I look at the tradition that I have studied and been a part of, I see so many examples. I read in the Bhagavad Gita the concept called Loka Sangraha, which is basically acting in responsibility towards yourself and towards your community. And again, there was a 12th century yogin called Jnaneshwara. He wrote this fantastic commentary on the Bhagavad Gita in Marathi. And he talks about universal suffering. And he feels that universal suffering in his heart, and he prays for universal peace. So even in the tradition, you have examples of yogis who have been socially engaged, who are aware of the larger social problems, who are rooted to the tradition, but at the same time, they're able to expand their consciousness and reach out to other people. And I think we can continue in the same spirit.
As you're speaking, I was considering how, it's an important part of the program with Yoga and Healing Sciences that people are engaging in karma yoga. And every year there are people that it's never occurred to them, well, how do I do that? And how do I even find someone to help, right? And or organizations, and it ends up being one of the most important pieces, I think, of all of the yogic practices, especially when we consider ways that we can share with people that don't get access, but that would like to learn. Not forcing anything on anyone, but recognizing if there's the openness and the desire for them to learn more, that we make it accessible and available.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. Yeah.
That's beautifully said, Terra. I'm so glad you said it. And I fully agree with you, because sometimes, the world of wellness and the world of yoga can be a little insular.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that, there's a sense of being all about the self, right? It's about your fitness, your self-love, and it's important. I recognize that it's important, but I feel that yoga runs on, both these sides, self-love as well as care for others, right? It's very much part of the yoga tradition. There's that sense of connection with the others, and that can be done in so many different ways. Financial help is one. Just being aware of what's happening is also a huge part of that kind of aware, part of being socially engaged. So I feel that there's real scope to do that, and without that, I think even your own journey of yoga will be incomplete, because I do feel that in helping others you help yourself, right? it's
Absolutely.
it's it's only through helping others, by engaging with others, that you find yourself. And that's been my experience too, as an immigrant into this country. I mean, I've had my own experiences, both good and bad, and I am aware of my own privileges as well as my own vulnerabilities. And I really do feel that we need to develop this strong allyship, a real inclusive space for everybody, where we just help each other and elevate each other. I think that's the way forward.
Well said, beautifully said. I totally agree. Allyship is such a good word, and elevating each other, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to see if there's anything else I might ask you. What I know that so many of the yoga schools out there don't necessarily teach Sanskrit, and a lot of times I meet people who are coming in and saying words in a very different way. Some of the words, and we try to teach the sacredness of sound, and that there's frequency that's getting transmitted, and purpose to why we might say things a certain way. Will you speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Tara, I feel that a pronunciation is really key, because right pronunciation leads to right understanding, and right understanding leads to right enlightenment. So there's a pathway to it. A pronunciation is a huge part of it. I mean, I can give you a funny example. So there are two words, right? Sakrit and Shakrut. Okay, so the first word starts with an S, and the second word Shakrut starts with a sh, but they mean totally different things. Sakrit means a positive action, kind of like a meritorious action, whereas Shakrut means, I'm sorry, it means piece of shit. Sorry to say that, but so what I mean to say is that making a distinction in the pronunciation, knowing the right sounds, it does open up your mind to the world of knowledge. And it's absolutely an integral part of being a yoga practitioner. I wouldn't say that it is just something that you do as a token gesture, that, oh, I know a little bit of Sanskrit, I know some words. I don't think it would work that way. I think Sanskrit needs to move beyond these gestures of tokenism and into the real heart space of yoga, where it really opens up our understanding of what yoga is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share any words that something in Sanskrit? Because when anything you speak in Sanskrit is so beautiful to hear whenever I hear you.
Well, there's a beautiful wisdom words that is my favorite. Okay, and this kind of ties in beautifully with karma yoga that you just mentioned, and it ties in beautifully with um, just this thing where we talk about a lot of things, but we don't really support our words with our actions, right? So this wisdom words goes something like this: उद्यमेन हि सिद्ध्यन्ति कार्याणि न मनोरथैः न हि सुप्तस्य सिंहस्य प्रविशन्ति मुखे मृगाः. What does that mean? It means that only when your wishes are supported by real action, that you can see the real results. Because if a lion is just sleeping in his cave wishing for a deer to come to him, that's not going to happen. He's going to go out there and hunt for his prey in order to feed his hunger, feel satisfied. So that kind of applies to all of us as yoga practitioners, that I think now is the time to move beyond world of words and discourse and engage in some real action that can help us grow on our path of yoga.
Beautiful. And these are the things that I'm so excited to be a part of sharing, with you and the other people that come in that share the roots and depths of yoga. In Yoga and the Healing Sciences program as one, but I know that you're doing this in other places in the world right now that I so love. Can you share anything about? I know you have also. It's called Akshara. Did I say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Academy.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say about your academy?
Sure. So I started this academy a couple of years ago because I felt that the things I wanted to do, the audiences that I wanted to reach out to, were not in my grasp if I continue teaching at universities. So Akshara is basically my child. It's my home, to which everybody and anybody is welcome. I offer classes in Sanskrit, in pronunciation, yoga philosophy. I offer online classes because currently, in-person classes are not happening. But we start with Sanskrit, and my goal is to eventually move away from Sanskrit. And you may find it a little counterintuitive because, everybody knows me as a Sanskrit person, but I feel that there is a real potential in other Indian languages too. There's wonderful literature in other Indian languages that I can share with the people here. I can bring some interesting stories to my teaching, the stories that are rooted in the regional cultures of India. There's some beautiful ideas that you can find in texts written in other Indian languages. So my goal is to just kind of start with Sanskrit, but expand awareness about the history of yoga and the role of language that plays in the evolution of yoga. So yeah, that's really my goal, and I'm very happy to call Akshara my home, and I just felt that having something of my own gives me a greater freedom to do what I want, rather than people in positions of power deciding what I can do or cannot do. I didn't want that to happen to me, because this is the one lifetime we have got, and we've got to just do what we want to do, follow our passions, do our jam, as I call it here.
Absolutely.
But Tara, I actually, I'm always fascinated by your teaching and your entrepreneurship, and I wanted to ask you, how did you come to yoga, and how did you kind of embark on this journey of yoga? How did you start?
Oh boy.
I know it's a bigger question, I know, but I'm just curious. I really want to know.
I would say I had a deep fascination and love for the sacred at a young age, but it came in many forms, because my background was more, my grandparents were Christian, but my stepfather came into my life, and his background was was Judaism, and then both he and my mom were very open to actually new age stuff, which some people are going to these days. But but part of what was lovely in the new age movement was a lot of embracing and attempting to understand a lot of Eastern concepts, actually. And that actually opened a door of interest that led me more and more to yoga. So we had a meditation room in the house when I was growing up, and there were all these books, sacred books of different kinds and different traditions.
Wonderful.
And an autobiography of yogi was there, but it was right next to A Course in Miracles. and then there were, and there was a Bible in there, and there were a variety of different kinds of texts. And I was always drawn to the yogic texts in particular. And then friends of my parents who were doing documentary work and working in and out of India. And I started seeing people doing asana at someone's house, and that I wanted to try it. And I was intrigued by that. Then I met people that were friends of theirs that were deep into Tantra and exploring a lot with breath work, meditation, energetic awareness. And I wanted to learn as much as I could at that point, which started at 12 years old, of trying to ask a lot of questions and finding out what I could. But a lot of those people were, mostly Westerners who had spent time in India and were totally passionate about the traditions. But it took quite some time until I met more of the actual teachers that have come from India directly. And so I always, for that reason too, I always questioned whether or not what I was getting was authentic or was somehow at the offering the root of the intentions of yoga, or if I was somehow missing something or got a glamorized version of something, so it's for that reason too. For many years, I actually I was kind of reticent to even share, and wondered if I knew enough. I always wondered if I knew enough, So that's part of what also led to my passion enough to eventually create a program where there are so many dedicated scholars that have dedicated their lives to yoga, so that what they're teaching, like yourself, is something you've immersed yourself in. Your life and your passions have gone into it, so that when people learn from you, they get a transmission, right? So that they get something that I can offer to the best of my ability from my background, but I can't offer certain things that you can offer. So the more we can share these conversations and our voices, and we come together, I think that the potential of sharing yoga is that much higher, greater, fuller,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's such a wonderful, beautiful story. Oh my goodness. I can't believe all these years of knowing each other. I never asked you that question, and I'm so glad I did it now. And it's so inspiring to hear that, Terra. I mean, it just tells me that, no matter where you start, it doesn't matter where you start, but where you end is all that matters. So I think it's all that journey, and it's a lifelong commitment, right? I mean, from you, I learned that it's a lifelong commitment, and you have to just absorb these different ideas and forces and collaborate and dialogue, right? Create a dialogue. I think that's the way forward, and I think your program is really doing that. I respect you for that. I mean, it's wonderful that you are, you come from this wonderful background and you're open to new ideas, and I'm so glad to know you.
It's so mutual, and I love what you teach. I love how you teach it. I love how much it comes. I love your knowledge that you have dedicated your life to as a scholar, and that it's rooted in your heart, the way you teach.
It is, but Terra, let me be very honest with you. I feel like I'm still a beginner, at various levels. I feel like there's so much I need to learn, and I'm not saying this just as a fake sense of humility, but I really do feel the more I read, the more I realize how little I know. And the more I hear stories such as your story, I feel, oh my goodness, there is so much I can learn from all the others. So it's believe me, I'm very uncomfortable sometimes with labels such as scholar, because I feel like I'm just a traveler on the path of youth.
I hear you. Yes. May it always be so, because it keeps us so open to learning, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thrilled that we got to have this time, and I hope that, in sharing it, it inspires other people. That's part of the intention, that they find you, that they find your offerings, that they find yoga and the healing sciences, or that they just reflect on the vastness of yoga in ways we can honor these traditions and keep sharing.
Absolutely. I think this is how the ideal world of yoga looks like to me. To be very honest, where we collaborate and have a dialogue and just learn from each other. That's all there is to
it. Okay, well, see you soon, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Terra. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.